All right. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How you been?
I'm good. I just haven't seen you in a long time.
I know. I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, you know how in recruit school we're always together, and then like the best and worst part about the fire service is the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I've taken 2 days off and or 2 shifts off and I've been off 8 days, but at the same time, on the flip side, I'd never get to see A and C shift people anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I think A shift has pretty much stayed the same people. Besides Long. Long has kind of jumped around a lot, but I feel bad because I remember we hung out every weekend, like almost every weekend, and then after recruit school, it was like we
Everybody goes their separate ways.
Yeah, pretty much. So I only see A shift people.
Exactly, and I only see B shift.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, but I'm glad we're doing this. This is pretty cool.
Yeah. So I mean, like this was you had asked earlier, like why do the podcast, and it's just a great way to reconnect with people. So it's like obviously like you and I haven't really gotten to hang out much since like recruit school.
Mm-hmm.
We had that one party back at the Bells Ferry house.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's just reconnecting and sharing stories.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I felt like we haven't really connected since we were at Station 3 together.
yeah,
Yeah, and I miss that.
You get like that 30 minutes of like, or 30 minutes to an hour of kind of interchanging lives and stuff like that, and then you kind of go about your like, all right, well, I got to leave.
Yeah.
It's like, no, don't go.
Yeah, I miss like being able to talk about like outdoorsy stuff
Mhm.
with people on either crew. People at 24 aren't really super into all the outdoorsy stuff, so I kind of miss that.
Well, here we go.
I know. How's mountain biking been?
Mountain bike has been awesome, but it's been rainy,
Mm.
so haven't been able to go as much as I wanted to lately. Like the trails down in Cherokee around Sixes and Rope Mill,
Mm-hmm.
they'll be closed if it's rained or the following day because they just don't want it. There's too many people down there.
Mm-hmm.
It'll just get torn up. So they have to wait for it to dry back out. So if it's just been raining for weeks, there's no biking.
Yeah.
And then up here, it's just if it's too wet, it's like dangerous.
Yeah, no broken bones.
Yeah.
I think it's just too expensive of a hobby for me to get in. I've got like my hands in so much stuff.
That's the
I
problem.
can't.
It's like everything is too expensive. It's like I want to do a little bit of everything, but you just can't afford it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, Isaiah got me back into mountain biking, and then we went up to North Carolina, and we did this trip, Kitsama Trail. It was supposed to be like this IMBA epic, like International Mountain Biking Association legendary trail.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, let's do it. So we went on this trail, and we looked at the weather forecast, and it said like 10% chance of rain. We looked at the radar. It's like, oh, we'll probably get sprinkled on. We got just absolutely poured down on. It rained for hours, and it was a trail that we were going to be out there for multiple hours. And I ended up losing him for a while. He lost his sunglasses, so he walked back. I'm waiting for like what felt like probably 30 minutes. Ended up walking back, and I'm like, Isaiah's fucking dead. Like, because he had already like gone over the handlebars a couple times. He had said,
No.
And then finally met back up with him. He rode that back down to my bike. I walked back. I felt like I walked like a mile or so, just like looking for him, like looking over the edge and everything. I'm like, where the hell is he? And finally get back to him. We start biking again. GoPro died, and then within a couple minutes, I went over the handlebars, and just my back's never been the same.
Oh,
Like
man.
my back pops, and just it was a mess. It was an absolute mess. Just mud and.
See, I don't know if I'm into all that. I like to kind of stick to the
Well,
hiking
that wasn't
and
the
stuff.
plan.
Yeah, well, maybe 10% rain. Yeah, that sucks. We tried to do my friend groups and we tried to do a Blood Mountain hike at the beginning of every year. It's like our New Year's hike. So we hike up to the top, and we drink like a Red Bull, like a Jaeger bomb, basically. And that's like our New Year's resolutions. We always hike Blood Mountain. And this year, it was like no chance of rain. We had like a bigger group. It was like 9 or 10 of us, and it started absolutely pouring, and none of us had like any rain jackets or anything like that. So when we got up top, it was so miserable. And my boyfriend had his dog with him, and she's an Australian Shepherd, and she was kind of getting anxious not being at the front of the pack. So they just like took off through like off trail up to the top, and we waited on him in the rain at one point for like 15 minutes,
Were
thinking
you
he was
guys like in
behind
the
us.
shelter?
Yeah, no, we were almost to the shelter.
Okay.
But he was up at the shelter the entire time, and we were waiting on him. But I had no service. Verizon's very spotty up here. So finally, he called somebody else, was like, where have y'all been? We're like, we thought you were behind us. It's pouring down rain. So I was pretty ticked for a little bit there. Because group hiking is harder because everybody wants to stay together, so you're going at a pretty slow pace.
Yeah.
And I normally hike like a 20-minute, mile or so. But that day it was like 30-minute, just constantly stopping with people that don't hike very often. But it was still fun. It was a fun experience. And we've been doing it like 3 years now. So it's just kind of a tradition.
I've done Blood Mountain probably 3 or 4 times, and I'd get up like 2 o'clock in the morning, drive up there, and you just park the car, and you're hiking in the dark.
Yeah.
You just got like the headlights on, and you be up there for the sunrise.
And
it's so awesome.
Yeah. I've always wanted to do that, or like a midnight hike, just somewhere where you can see like the stars big time.
Have you been to Rabun Bald in North Georgia?
Yes, I went a few weeks ago with
they have that what's it called?
Tower.
Yeah, the old tower.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that high off the ground, I don't feel like. But yeah, I went up there in the summer probably 2 or 3 years ago, and I heard it was in one of those dark zones, like perfect for looking at the stars.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a new moon, so it was going to be like pitch black. And I heard from those locations that you could see the Milky Way. And you could.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
So it was really cool to see it. Like there was like probably 10 other people, and we're all just like laying up there. And eventually I had set up my hammock a little bit down the hill. So eventually I left and like we just went back to my hammock. But there was a ton of people that just slept on the wood floor. And
so was it pretty packed? Like a lot of other people were doing it?
There was about 10 people up there. I mean, it got a little crowded, but it was cool.
Yeah.
It was really interesting to just like talk to other people. Like one dude, he had just come back from Kilimanjaro.
Oh,
I was like, that's awesome.
I want to do that so bad. That's my like next big mountain outside of the United States is Kilimanjaro.
Okay.
Because when you do their treks out there, they have local guides. So it's like an entire experience of like 10 days, and they actually throw a safari in there. So
what does safari actually mean, though?
To them, it's like they
Like
put you in
hunting?
the Jeeps. No,
Oh.
not hunting. Like you're in the Jeeps and you're like going around and seeing the animals and stuff. But that's a part of it. So one of my mountain guides up in Washington was actually telling me about going to Kilimanjaro, and because it brings in such local revenue, the guides like want to do everything for you. So every few people, you have a cook, you have a porter who carries all your stuff. So the only time you're carrying your stuff is when you're actually climbing Kilimanjaro. Otherwise, when you're like at base camp and you're still like not on the mountain, everything's taken care of. So it's very bougie almost. But they still say it's so worth it because Kilimanjaro actually like pretty much has all the seasons where you got like the desert, the jungle, the
Which is weird because
alpine.
you perceive Africa around that area
Yeah.
is like super hot.
But it's like basically how each side of the mountain, it's just in a different climate. So it's,
How tall is Kilimanjaro?
I believe, I want to say it's 18,
Okay.
18 to in the 20 range.
Yeah, to look up yesterday, Mount Rainier is like just over
14,
14,000.
14.4. Yeah.
And so that's your next big one.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I've been training for that since 2020.
So how did you even get into mountaineering? Or like, all right, for first off, how would you define mountaineering?
Mountaineering is hiking up to a point where you're glacier traveling on a glaciated mountain.
Okay.
So it has rope skills, ice axe skills. There's some scrambling, but I think the Chiefs, when I started to hear that I was like getting into this stuff, I think they thought I was actually climbing, like
ice climbing?
ice climbing or rock climbing, because they were like, "Oh, Brooke, how's your rock climbing going?" I'm like, "What do you think I'm doing out there?" They were like, but then I kind of had explained it to them more. It's like, well, it's like a really long hike with very steep,
technical.
yeah,
hike.
technical with steep elevation. I got into it because during medic school, I had planned this whole trip to France right after medic school. I was going to go to Normandy beaches, and we were going to go south of France to go stay with some family, but COVID hit. So I had to cancel that, and I still had a ton of money into the trip that Delta gave my money back. But I still had to use it towards a flight credit. So Hickson and I were actually talking one day. He was on the crew at the time. And we started looking up and we were like, man, you know what we should go do? Denali. And we started looking up the prices for Denali, and it's like 10 grand.
Yeah.
Just because of how remote it is, you're talking like a 2-week trek into the Alaskan wilderness. So I was like, there's no way I could afford 10 grand to go climb a mountain. So
that's why they say like mountaineering is like a rich man's sport.
Oh, it is 100%. So I ended up Googling like cheaper mountains pretty much, and Mount Rainier isn't the highest in the 48, but it is the most glaciated, so it's still like the top 5 dangerous mountains in the United States. And I just thought it, because it was so technical, and we were going out to visit Washington State like that fall in 2020 anyway, I was like, you know what, this would be kind of cool. And I was reading some books, specifically there was this one called To the Summit by Margot Chisholm, and it was her journey through addiction and depression and how she climbed everything except for Everest. So she did the rest of the 6 peaks, but she got sick on Everest. And so it's this book that almost nobody's read. Like she only did pretty much a couple of runs of her book. And me and my best friend Ren were so moved by it. And I was like, you know what? Like training for mountaineering is very similar to training for firefighting, because it's very like endurance and breathing techniques, and it's a lot of it's a mental game for sure. So I got started into that, and I took my first mountaineering class in 2021, and I've done Mount Baker last year, and that's in the Cascades, so almost a Canadian line.
Okay.
Still in Washington State. And that was like my Rainier prep course, but
okay. Who did you take a course through?
I went through Mountain Madness,
okay.
and that's a great guide group if you ever get out there. It's funny, the original owner. Do you know the book Into Thin Air?
I've heard of it
by John Krakauer.
Mm-hmm.
So it was this Everest tragedy where a ton of people died, and the owner of Mountain Madness actually was on that trek, and he died. And the woman who took the company over from him, she actually disappeared in the Himalayas as well. So the third owner is the one I've met, and it's just like this itty-bitty little house in Seattle suburbs, and this like very small company, like everybody knows each other, they treat you like family. And they were very encouraging, because I guess they don't see a whole ton of Southern people to go do that sort of stuff. So they were very nice, and I had never even walked on snow before, especially with crampons on. Like, I was like a little baby deer, but they were super gentle with definitely like the crawl, walk, run type of stuff. And so now at the end of my last trek, they were like, I think you're ready for Rainier, and I think you're ready for Rainier unguided. And I was like, dang, like, okay. That gave me a little boost of confidence.
Can you hike Rainier by yourself? Like without any kind of previous experience?
Not really. It's really...
Like, is it regulated that way?
So you have to apply for a climbing permit, which we're in the process of right now.
And then, so do you have to have any kind of certifications to
no,
have that?
No certifications, but it's
highly
really
recommended.
Yeah, highly recommended to go with a guide service, which until I found my 3 other partners, I was going to go with a group probably, because it was just me. Like, nobody else is really into that stuff, and it's expensive. So I'm actually taking Hill from Station 23.
Yeah.
We were kind of just mentoring each other. She's like really good at fitness and getting strong. She used to, be a personal trainer and stuff. So she was kind of helping me with the workout stuff, and I was helping her get used to the fire department. And so we were mentoring each other. And I just said, "Hey, you like want to do Rainier?" And she was like, "That's been on my bucket list." So
perfect.
Yeah, it's been perfect. And then I've met 2 other guys through Scouts that they're like just crazy enough to go along with this. I actually met one of the wives first, and at summer camp last year with the Scouts, she was like, "You know what? My husband is probably crazy enough to do that." And I was like, "Well, what makes you say that?" She was like, "Well, when we got first got married, he decided after like a month or two he was going to go hike the Appalachian Trail. They were newlyweds, and he went and
like, I'm gonna go hike the entire,
yeah,
like through hike it
on a 2-week notice, and she was like, "Okay, I'll work and save the money and send the money to you." And I was like, "Wow, that's intense.
A pretty understanding
Oh,
relationship.
Yeah. And then she told me another story of like there was a time that they were going to Daytona Beach for a vacation, and he decided to bike there from Macon. So he just said, "Oh, I'm gonna bike there. I'll meet you there," and then he did. So he's like crazy enough to do this sort of stuff.
Just
and she was
stupid enough.
Yeah, and so she was like, "My husband will do this, and you need a partner because it is dangerous. I mean,
oh, yeah.
like 2 to 5 people die on Rainier every year. But I mean, when you think about the odds of firefighters dying, it's kind of similar. So
yeah, I looked it up too. It's like a active stratovolcano.
yeah, they think it's gonna be the next Mount St. Helens. Honestly,
Like it's on. I looked it up. It's like it's on the decade list.
Yeah.
Meaning like it's expected.
So hopefully it doesn't do that before July. But
there's there's a documentary on Netflix right now. Explosion on Wakaturi, I think it was. It's this small little island off of New Zealand, and it exploded while there was tourists there, and it's closed now. But it was just like, man,
I'll have to check that out. Yeah, so been training for that. We're trying to go like the second week of July.
So does the seasons affect that at all? Like,
mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, obviously that's a stupid question, but I mean, like, is winter like that much harder? Or?
Oh yeah, avalanche. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So, believe it or not, some firefighters in our department actually have some family experience with Rainier, and one of our officers, he actually, while we were up visiting as a family Washington State in September of 2020, his cousin actually died on Rainier in a whiteout, and I think he died due to the conditions, just like literally froze to death, pretty much, got lost. And September is a terrible time. There's just so much. You really have like a small window. So like typically people climb in June and July through to August, but June is still cold enough that there's a chance of like having really bad windstorms and stuff. July is the most populated, but it's also the best for like weather. And I figure because I'm the only one like with like real experience on the mountain, it seemed like a better idea to try for July than June. And then August, if it gets too hot, the glaciers melt, and sometimes you could get almost all the way up to the top and not be able to cross because the crevasses are too big. So there's just the weather affects it a lot. Like we may go and not get to the top,
Right.
And I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, we have to do it because we came all this way. Like if it's gonna jeopardize,
you say that until you're up there and you're like,
if it jeopardizes somebody's life or somebody gets altitude illness, like we're just not gonna do it.
So you guys gonna fly out there early and try and start getting used to the altitude? Yeah,
that's the plan. We're gonna base camp in the park, and then I think it's like 10 miles to Camp Muir.
What elevation is base camp?
So at Rainier is 8,000, and then you climb up to like, I believe Muir is 11, and then as steeper, obviously, like the higher you go, the steeper it is. So you're really not doing many miles whenever we're gonna get up and go make for our summit push. It's probably gonna be like 2.5 miles or so, and we'll get up at like
it'll be
2 o'clock in the morning, you
yeah.
know,
yeah,
and try it because that's when everything's still frozen. And hopefully, we get to see sunrise, which is like on Mount Baker. It was the most beautiful views I've ever seen in my life. And hopefully to be at the top around 9 a.m., 10 a.m., and then to head back down before the sun, because it gets hot on the summit, like unbelievably hot. So you go from being like
exposed.
30 degrees, and then you feel like it's 1,000. It gets really hot. So you're like constantly putting on layers off layers. And that's been the most expensive part.
The clothes.
It's the clothes. During COVID, just because nobody was doing anything, I was on like Steep and Cheap and backcountry.com like constantly. Like typically everybody was making fun of me at the station because they'd be like, oh, Brooke's looking for like winter clothes again. But it's hard. Those stuff is like $300 a pop sometimes for like
Yeah,
a
you got
hard
to go
shell.
with the base layers, then you get
Hmm.
like the mid layers, and then you got the outer layers, and then you get the shells.
Yeah. My mom was like, "You wear the same outfit anytime you're out there," and I'm like, "Yeah, because I had enough money for one set of clothes. So yeah, I'm gonna look the exact same in all these pictures."
Yeah.
Um, but I just love how mentally rewarding it is. Like talking about like back in recruit school, we had to go through something called personal limitations, which you was like a course that everybody had to go through, and you went to your actually like personal limit. And I was one of the only ones that, or I was the only one that didn't finish that night. But honestly,
But you were pulled.
yeah, I was pulled because
So,
I
I mean,
couldn't
like,
even
to your
tell.
defense,
I couldn't even tell you what my name was. You
like,
know.
you had like dislocated or broken your thumb, and you
Yeah,
were
it
just like,
dislocated my thumb.
you're
Yeah,
just out of it.
on that the ladder rack.
Yeah.
I like caught it and I dislocated my thumb and I had to like put it back in. I'm sure there's a W2 or workman's comp
yeah.
somewhere that says that, but the first mountain I went on, Ruth Mountain, it wasn't even like, it's like an 8,000. It wasn't even anything, but that was the first time I've ever been mountaineering, and that was my personal limitations. Like seriously, I don't know if it was a mix of they were controlling all our food and we were doing like a vegan weekend because there was like 15 women on this trip. And come to find out, I didn't know that typically mountaineering, you don't have groups that size. You typically try to leave it to like 5 or under. And they're on a rope team, you typically want like 3 or 4 people. And then you kind of separate, if there's any more than that, you go into 2 rope teams. But we had like 15 women on this intro to mountaineering. And I think
So
by the
large group.
yeah,
just
but not
slowed
everybody
down?
made it. Yeah, so we slowed down. So there were some girls that stayed at base camp at like 2:00 in the morning, and then we lost some like within the first 30 minutes, and then we lost another like within 2 hours. And I remember this time where our guide Amber, it was our last like snack break pretty much, and she was like, if you need to seriously check in with yourself, and if you don't think that you can get to the top of this mountain and all the way back down, you need to go ahead and turn it back around. And I remember I was like sitting there thinking to myself, I was like checking in with my like whole body and checking in my legs and stuff. I was like, I think I can do this. I think I can. And it was on that last push that just mentally I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't put another foot in front of the other. And I was like praying to God, like, I just need to get to the top, or maybe they'll like say we need another break because we're going so slow. And I was in the middle of the pack, and I just remember, okay, the next time we stop, I'm turning around, even if I've got to go back down myself. And this snow was so deep, I was pretty much like marching in it up to my knees. And I see Amber ahead of me, and she goes, all right, this is it. And next thing you know, I'm like walking over the summit. And she has it on video, and I literally go, oh my gosh. Like, I was such awe, and I couldn't believe it. Like, I actually went so much further than I thought I could. And so I started busting out crying. And I just, because I was like, I felt so weak, and that I just couldn't go on anymore. And I was actually so close to the summit when I was about to give up. And it, putting that into like firefighting, they always used to preach us like, you're gonna lay down and die, like
3 feet from the door.
3 feet from the door. And that never really truly made sense to me until I was on the mountain, and I was like, oh my gosh, you truly can go a lot further than you think you can.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So after that I got addicted to it, and
That's awesome.
just been going forward since.
All right. So Mount Rainier's the next one.
Yeah.
So Denali, is that in
I
the
don't
future?
know. I'd love to go to Alaska, but that's actually not the next adventure. The next adventure is in August, the next month, and Denver and I won a lottery ticket to Phantom Ranch in the bottom of the Grand Canyon. So we're going to do rim to rim.
Cool.
Yeah, 24 miles. I think we're going to go south to the North Rim, and we'll stay over the night in a hiker cabin. So it'll be about 10 miles the first day and 14 miles the second day, which crazy people do like rim to rim to rim to rim, because it's so hard to get backcountry permits in the Grand Canyon, because they want to try to limit how many people go in.
Right.
So some like ultra runners will just go straight, like pretty much hike the entire 24 hours, and not stop. But there's no way I could do that. So when he and I won the lottery to get a hiker cabin, we're just gonna stop over for the night, get some rest, and then finish out and go North Rim. But it's promotion season when we want it, so I will be missing out again. But it is what it is. I mean, I feel like this sort of stuff is much more important to me right now in life.
Absolutely.
Promotion. So,
That's
but
cool.
I was on Mount Baker last year during interview week, so I haven't tested for the last 2
Have you ever
tries.
asked for like an exception for that?
I did.
And like, no.
Yeah, they said no, and then they said you need to try not to take vacation next year in August. And then but this time it's not really my fault. We literally put in for random dates. We were hoping to get May or September because that was going to work out easier for Denver. And we got August 24th. So it is what it is, you know. And he and I are like,
do it.
Yeah, we'd rather do this because this is like a
Absolutely.
big adventure for us. So he and I are going, probably one of his friends, to be determined who that is, and then my boyfriend. So four of us will go.
Are you planning on going back to France? Or not back to
I don't
France,
know.
eventually going to France?
Yeah, I'd like to. I know you've been.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
I loved it. Like, we went to Azores for technically 2 days. We landed, stayed a day, let the pilots rest up, and then we flew to England, stayed there for a couple days, got to explore around like Stonehenge and I can't remember the name of the town near there. But we were supposed to go through, we did their British Airborne School crash course to jump with them because their parachutes are different.
Oh.
They're not as deep. They're more shallow, kind of like Frisbees. So it's just a different aspect to it. So we did that, but then the day of the jump, it was way too windy. So they're like, all right, you guys get to go to London. So that was a cool experience in its own. Explored all of London, and then we went to France, and we got to see the Normandy beaches of like Omaha, Utah, Pegasus Bridge, which was like a big British mission. What's it called? The Point de Hoc, where the Rangers landed.
Oh yeah, okay. I remember
Just
that.
phenomenal. And then the American Normandy Cemetery, the German Normandy Cemetery. It was just
Breathtaking. I
yeah.
bet. Yeah,
Just-
I really want to go.
the beaches. Like, I'd say the only thing that Saving Private Ryan didn't fail to capture was how large the beach is.
Mm.
Like, when I have a picture and I've showed it to like multiple people, I'm standing still like 50 feet away from like where the water was. The beach is just enormously big.
Mm.
And like the amount of like that land that they had to travel just to get onto the beach is just insane. And so we got these guides, and he was telling us like this house, like pointing up on the ridge line, and goes, those were old machine gun bunkers. So those were like machine guns pointing out, and then he's like, that one and that one, those were actually machine guns inflated, pointing inwards. There's nowhere to hide. Like,
That's
literally
crazy.
nowhere.
What an experience now, but just to imagine how long it must have felt. Like, it must have felt like forever.
Yeah.
You know, the courage you had to get across
Insane.
that beach.
So,
Gives me chills.
yeah, one of the cool things that I got to do when I was over there was I was in the color guard
Mm-hmm.
for some of the cemetery or ceremonies, and the coolest one I'd probably say was Point de Hoc, and I remember, and the color guard group is like all sergeants, staff sergeants. I think we had one sergeant first class, and then the guy over it was a first sergeant, and then there was a 1-star general. I'm the only non-NCO. I'm a specialist.
Yeah.
I'm like the lowest of the group. And I remember them telling me, we're not going to put on the streamers to the Army flag, which is the flag I was carrying, because it's too windy. It's going to be way too much. We're not going to do it. And I was like, literally arguing with a first sergeant and a 1-star general. I was like, let me do it. I can do it. I was like, if these guys, I'm like looking over the cliff and I'm like, if these Rangers can climb this thing and like do everything while getting shot at, I was like, I can hold a flag. And I remember I finally got them to like, okay, you could do it. And so the area that we were staged at was just below like the platform. So you had to take some steps up, and we're coming around. And like as soon as I get up to like almost the top step, this massive gust of wind hits me and I just start like tilting. And I'm just like fighting this flag, and I like hold it. I'm finally like resecure it, and I'm standing up at the top. I'm like standing at attention, just arms out in front of me, holding this flag, and I could see like the other guys, like they're not even struggling, and I'm just like shaking from the wind, just ripping through the area. And I like for 30 minutes, I'm just fighting for my life, holding this flag, because it's just the wind was so strong. And the best part was there was a ranger there that had like been there that day, and he came up to me, goes, I saw how hard you were fighting for that flag. You did such a great job. And I'm like, my jaw dropped.
Yeah.
I was like, I just held a flag. Like, that's nothing compared to like what you guys did. And it was like so rewarding.
Yeah.
But it was so cool.
Have you ever been back since then?
No. I want to go back. It's such an amazing experience, especially the cemetery.
Yeah.
The beaches were cool, but the cemetery was there's just so many rows of tombstones.
Wow.
There's crosses, and then there's stars of David. And they just go as far as you can see.
That's crazy. Yeah, I want to go pretty bad. There's other places, like we went to Pearl Harbor beginning of last year, and I didn't realize that it's still leaking. Like the oil and like it still comes up. Yeah, it bubbles up while you're like out there, because they take you out to the Arizona in a boat, and it's like, or the memorial, and you like look over the edge and it still like bubbles up and stuff.
Wow.
Like, it's still leaking to this day. It's
Yeah,
insane.
how was that? Like, I've wanted to go to Hawaii too, just to see
Yeah.
Pearl Harbor. Like,
It was packed. Like, and if I give you any advice about you need to book like early, because some of it's private.
okay.
So, like the Missouri is like a private ticket, and then the Arizona, you kind of have to get in line for a ferry ticket, and each ferry takes like probably 45 minutes. But you have to like be on time for absolutely everything. Like that's probably the first time I can't even remember another national park that you actually had to be like absolutely on time or you weren't going. So of course I was dragging our family, because I was like, we're not missing, Pearl Harbor.
Right.
This is like the highlight of the trip. But it's amazing there. It was just crowded and hot, and it was January when we went, like right after New Year's. But it was really hot outside. But yeah, that's definitely a must see. Especially on the memorial, it's like everybody just gets super quiet, and the tour guide is like kind of telling you a little bit about. They'll like tell individual stories of like people who didn't make it and stuff. And I just think being in the Pearl Harbor area, it's still an active military base. So they're very strict about who comes in and stuff. So it's a very serious ordeal for sure.
That's cool.
Yeah. There's other places in Hawaii I want to go, but that was like the main one. That's why we went to Oahu. And then we traveled to a smaller island, Molokai, and there's really not a whole, it was like farmland. But it was still pretty cool to kind of just relax. Denver's the big snorkeler. He's like the beach bum of us two. I'm the mountaineer, and he's the wanting to
opposite.
Yeah, very opposite.
Elevations.
Yeah, he just likes to snorkel and be in the water all the time. So, but I'd love to go to what's that? Kauai, and then the Big Island, because on the very Big Island, that's where Mauna Kea, I think that's their highest point, and that's like pretty interesting. Their highest point there is you have some serious elevation change, because you go from 0 all the way up. But that can be done. People do Jeep tours, or you can hike it up. But it's like 12 miles from zero elevation. So
It's a quick change.
yeah, very quick change. But I'd love to eventually do like all 50. So maybe Denali someday.
All 50 what?
All 50 states.
Oh, 50 states.
Yeah,
okay.
for highest points. I've done 7 or 8 so far. Mostly like the southeast.
All right.
And then like some rando. Like I've been to Connecticut's highest point.
It's crazy because like you go from like Georgia, Brasstown Bald.
Yeah.
It's tallest one, and then I've been to Colorado, Pikes Peak.
Yeah.
And they're just completely different mountains.
Mhm.
Like our mountains are hills in comparison.
But I think there's like a certain appeal to our mountains here.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like the Smoky Mountains, like the way that the Blue Ridge Mountains look, like that like smoky blue look.
Mhm.
It's pretty cool. But I love the alpine look in Colorado and in Washington. It's funny, they were making fun of me because I'd never seen a marmot before. Do you know what a marmot is?
It's like a groundhog, right?
It's like a giant groundhog mixed with, kind of looks like a beaver,
Okay.
but without the tail. And I'd never seen one before. And so, you know, me, like, I'm like, oh yeah, Marmot, the clothing company. And they were like, you know, that's named after the actual animal. And I was like,
But
Marmot's not an animal.
isn't their logo like a woolly mammoth or something?
I think, no, that's Mammut.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Marmot, it's like it's huge, and they're everywhere. Up, like once you get back up towards like 8,000 feet, and they're actually, you're more worried about them than you are bears of getting into your food, because they will like come straight up to camp. And I got so many pictures of those marmots, and I would send them to my parents whenever I got service, and they were like, "What in the world are those things?" And I was like, "See, I'm not crazy. We just don't, you know."
We don't get them around
You don't
here.
see them in zoos or anything either, so I had no idea what that thing was.
Huh.
But they were all over the place. They kind of compare them to squirrels. Yeah, like the mountaineers and
The
stuff.
Colorado.
They're like,
equivalent
oh,
Huh.
yeah, those are like squirrels. They're like pests. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Everywhere. Like I saw at least 12 on Mount Maker.
Hey.
Yeah, they're just all over the place. But they're like squirrels in the sense of they just want your food and to get in your tent and stuff. So I hung some stuff up in the tree. You know,
Can they climb trees?
yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. But they lived in like little holes in the side of the trail. So you'd be like walking down the trail and everything's dusty out there. It's like a gray dust. Like if we have red clay, there's this just like kind of like sand, but it's very gray, and so it gets everywhere. And you just be like going down the trail and you see like this hole, and a marmot will come up and try like cross the trail.
Huh.
But that was kind of interesting. Of course, they called me Georgia because they were like, "You just don't know anything."
Like I know stuff in my area.
Yeah, exactly. But it was pretty cool. I'm trying to think, what else do you have planned this year?
For me, I don't know. I want to try and do some camping trips.
Yeah.
I mean, like like the sacrifice that like you have to put into for medic school,
Yeah.
and like with just the combination of COVID, medic school, and then we moved from Woodstock to Blue Ridge. We're like an hour and a half away from everybody down in Cherokee.
Mm-hmm.
We're 30 minutes away from anything. It's just this compounding effect of like isolation.
Yeah.
And I know my Des, my wife, like felt it the most because she just didn't leave except for the grocery store.
Yeah.
And every once in a while she'd be like, "I'm going to Starbucks." And I'm like, "I don't blame you." She's like, "I got to get out of the house." But it was just all this stuff that kind of compounded that you had to sacrifice your time.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's like, okay, we finally got into the new house. Medic school's over. I want to get back to like adventuring.
Mm-hmm.
So I've like strategically taken days off for the year. Like when we had to pick all our days.
Mm-hmm.
I just picked like a lot of, I want to say like Wednesdays and Thursdays. Just so that way.
Oh, she had the whole week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
With Des. Okay. Yeah.
Well, not for her. She's still got to work during the week.
Mm.
But it just allows for me to like go wherever I want to go during the week, just because like, as you know, like the weekends are always like the most crowded.
Oh yeah,
So
weekends
like,
and summer.
if you can go anywhere during the week, you have the place to yourself.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And like, every once in a while, like you get somebody else out there, but for the most part, it's a lot less crowded.
Yeah, that's the hard part about with our department growing the way it is. There's like 200 people behind us, but the leave spot still hasn't really changed. So it's like impossible to get off. Like to get spring break off, I had to work like pretty much this last week, 248s in a week because the books are full and books are full during summer too. So it's hard. I don't mind trading. I'd rather do that. I don't mind 48s that much, but especially if I need the time. Like on spring break, I'm like with a scout troop, like the girls' side. So it's still Boy Scouts of America, but it's the girls' side of the troop. And we have 24 girls, and we're taking 6 to the Florida Keys for spring break. And we're going to go sailing and snorkeling and like open sea fishing. So between the ages of 14 and 16. So it's going to be
That'd be cool.
a wild adventure. And I've never been sailing or anything like that, but I
It
have to
always
work
looked
hard.
cool. Oh yeah.
I have to work hard to get that off, and it'll be pretty cool. Trying to beef up my swimming just in case any of the girls go overboard. I'm a little worried about that, but
wear a life jacket.
yeah, there's a few that I'm like, we're just gonna wear white life jackets during it most of the time. But yeah, we're going down for like 6 days.
So you're gonna do like a sailing
adventure
course?
Yeah, well, so it's Sea Base is the place that's out of, and basically the Boy Scouts of America bought this old hotel in Isla Madora, Florida, and it's like one of the first or second keys, and so they get captains like in like private ships to take scouts out into the ocean, and they've even got a place in the Bahamas. So we'll learn how to sail, snorkel in some coral reefs, and then open sea fishing, which some of the scouts have experience doing that. Have you ever deep sea fished?
I went trolling.
What's the difference?
It's not as far out.
Oh, okay.
We went down to Panama City when I was probably like a young teenager. So we went with another family, and we went so far out that we could start air quote trolling, and the guy set everything up. He baited all the lines, threw them out, and then all we had to do was just reel them in.
Oh, okay. That seems pretty
So like
easy.
Me and this other guy that he was about my age, we were just having a blast, and we're just pulling in like 1 foot, 2 foot fish, Spanish mackerel, and some other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But deep sea, I believe, is like when you get out beyond like where I think like it truly like the shelf drops off.
Yeah.
And then you start getting like the big fish.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much what we're going to be doing a little bit of. So just we'll like stop in all the keys and learn how to fish. And then apparently the website and all the reviews are saying like they bring the fish up and they prepare it for you on the boat, and you're going to eat
fresh sushi.
Yeah, fresh seafood. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, the scouts are super excited. I'm super excited. It's considered high adventure. That's what they call it. So there's high adventure Sea Base. There's a place up in Minnesota. It's called Northern Tier. That's probably going to be our next one. And then Philmont out in New Mexico.
I remember Philmont.
Yeah,
I
Philmont's
never got to do that.
Huge area. Like a bunch of my friends worked out there in the summers. I've never been. I want to pretty bad. You can go on like 100-mile treks. That's typically the average of what the scouts do.
Wow.
But right now we're trying to get into Northern Tier for a winter adventure to learn how to dog sled next February. Yeah. The girls want to learn how to dog sled, and it's a super hard trek to get into. But I've got some connections just being in scouting for like the last 10 years. Where they've been kind of helping us with some contacts, and it'll be another lottery system. But that's what the girls really want to do, is learn how to like mush dogs.
That's
so
cool.
And then of course it's like really cold up there because you're going in middle of the winter Minnesota, but some of them have already done it before. but it was a different adventure. It was just a cabin, like
I didn't
cold
realize
winter
they did
cabin.
dog sledding in Minnesota.
Yeah.
I always just thought of it as like
It's like, I mean,
very
we're
northern
talking
Canada
like the
and
very
Alaska.
top of Minnesota, like Canada, pretty
Right.
much. Yeah. I know, like, one of my best friend's brother, that used to be his job. He was like the dog sled guy. And now he's an accountant for the. I'm like, did you really you traded the dog sled to be the accountant for Northern Tier? But he likes it. They bought a house up there, and he's not coming back to Cherokee County. That's for sure.
Who is this?
It's my best friend's little brother. He's Denver's age, but
Okay.
he went from, like, some people turn scouting, like, they'll either be seasonal workers, but some of them turn into a full-time gig of working at those type of bases.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So they're just
What a life.
living the life. I
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
If I hadn't done this, like, from 18, I probably would have gone into scouting for a little while, probably. I always wanted to work at Philmont, but now with, like, this kind of schedule, I can't do anything other than just part-time work. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking back the other day. I was talking to one of my friends. It's like, you know, all the documentaries that are out on like Netflix and Hulu and everything that like Maru and my mind just went blank on all the other ones. But it's like when we were kids, it's like those things were so hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like they're so readily available to like inspire like the next generation.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Oh, yeah.
Like I remember like you'd go to like REI or like Galleons back in the day and you just catch a clip of something and you're like, wow, like that's so cool. Like I want to get into that. And now it's like, man, you can just turn it on Netflix and the inspiration's right there and just bringing on the next generation of adventurous.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Our scouts are really, like, I'm very proud of them. They're super adventurous, and I'm just here for it. I'm pretty much chaperone, but I'm here for it. Like, whatever they want, sky's the limit. Even
So how early did you get into like outdoorsy stuff?
I don't know. See, we weren't big campers or even hikers because apparently my dad had a run-in with a bear like years and years and years ago, and he never really hiked after that for a long term. I would say probably like 16 or so. I started getting really into hiking and stuff. I didn't start backpacking until 2020.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm actually like pretty new to backpacking, and so that was kind of a steep curve because backpacking and the mountaineering, like that was like when I did Mount Baker, that's the longest I've ever, like for like 4 nights. I'd never done that before. That's a long time, for someone who's never done anything like that. But it's been kind of self-taught. My family's not really into that stuff, and luckily I've had friends that taught me along the way. But it's been pretty cool. I could talk about this sort of stuff all day long.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I want to say like my dad got me into it when I was, I want to say fairly young, but we would only do just like normal backpacking.
Yeah.
Like we'd get our backpacks and like we'd hike into Cohutta a lot. Became very familiar with Cohutta. We did a lot of trails out there. But it wasn't until after the military that I really got into the outdoors. And like land nav in the military is like, I mean, it's simple once you learn it, but for me, I picked up topographical reading really easy. Like the whole azimuth and everything, not as much. That was harder to learn. But I'm very comfortable and just like, I'll put on a backpack and I'll just hike in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And like with no general direction, I'm just like, I'm gonna hike this way.
That's an awesome skill to have.
And I'm very comfortable doing that just because of how well, like, I'll say this, like, when you hike it on a trail, it's almost just like hiking or it's just like walking normally.
Mm-hmm.
You see the trail, you're not paying attention as much.
Yeah.
But it's like when you're fully immersed in it and like there's no trail to follow and you have to like truly pay attention to like all your surroundings, you start picking up all this stuff that normally all this information that would just kind of like pass right by.
Yeah, hiking is sometimes very passive. Like you could just zone out, and as long as you follow the trail, you're probably not gonna get lost.
If you stay on the trail, you're good.
I think that's why hiking has hit such a it's become so popular. I feel like finding trails these days where it's not just run over by people is really rare.
That's
Because
why you
it's
got
how
to go during
easy
the
it
week.
is. Yeah, yeah. During the week and early, everybody in Seattle hikes. Everybody. My friend and I, we drove 3 hours to go to this 10-mile alpine lake. Left at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and we got to the trailhead at sunrise, and the parking lot was full, and you had to walk. You had to park and walk half a mile to the trailhead. That's how many cars were there. I'd never seen so many people on a trail in my life. And this is like one of the harder hikes. I mean, it was 10 miles. People in Atlanta don't hike 10 miles,
No.
No. Typically the 10 miles up here, nobody's on. It was insane.
You've been to Colorado, right?
I've been once. I was up there to babysit while people were on a ski trip. So we didn't do any hiking because it was all snow.
We went to, Des and I did that Manitou Incline on our honeymoon trip,
Oh, yeah.
and it was crazy how packed it was. And it's just so steep in such a short amount of time. It's like 1 mile, I think, of elevation, and it's just thousands of stairs.
Didn't you guys video it?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, I think you showed me the video when you got back.
Right. It's like that. Nobody would do that out here.
Yeah, no. Mm-mm.
It's just not as popular. But like out there, it's like everybody does it.
Yeah, that's how Seattle was. That's why I could never live out there. Because that's what, I mean, yeah, it's easy access to skiing and mountaineering and hiking, but everybody else also does it.
Well, you live in a playground out there.
Yeah. So,
Of course you're gonna
even
do
my
it.
friends have said that since COVID, that's because everything like just completely shut down up there, that is still like just slowly getting back to where trails aren't populated. So it's crazy. I mean, I love it. Everybody's gotten outdoors and stuff, but sometimes people don't use leave no trace principles, and they don't treat the outside with respect.
Right.
So that's the hard part for me to get over.
Yeah. I see trash on the side of the trails, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
I try and pick up as much as I
me too.
can.
Me too.
Just bring like a Ziploc bag, and you're just putting stuff away, and it just kind of eats at you. Like you're out here and you're enjoying it, and then you just trash it. And like leaving trash for me is like, it's one thing, but when you break glass, especially like by the water, it's like kids and dogs are all playing out there, and like,
yeah,
just people get hurt from they just slice their foot open because somebody's just completely inconsiderate.
Yeah, unfortunately, not everybody treats the outdoors like
Yeah.
people who really love it, do. It's sad. But the only thing you can do is just keep, like, with our scouts, they literally recite the outdoor code at every meeting, and they talk about leave no trace all the time. And I think it's just teaching the next generation on how to respect
Right.
the wilderness. So I think it's very important. That's why I'm, like, passionate about it.
Yeah, I love getting outdoors, especially like once it's not raining.
Yeah.
So it's like hopefully like it'll start getting better. Like today's a perfect day. Yeah, just I love it. It's so nice just to be just surrounded by like the trees and nothing compared to like our everyday lives of buildings.
Yeah, I can't wait to move up here and get away. I just want to
do it.
Yeah. All I really care about is I'd like to build my own house someday. But I just want my books.
There's some lots right next to me.
We could be neighbors. I want to build my own house someday, just have my books and my kids and be outdoors all the time. That's the dream life to me.
There you go. Do you plan on having kids? Like, I remember you said you were homeschooled.
Yeah.
Are you going to do the same thing?
No.
Why not?
So my dad did most of our like schooling.
Yeah.
And my mom was like a career woman. She had all these volunteer groups and stuff. And I just think with the schedule would be hard. And I don't think I could do the primary schooling. I think I'm just so busy with everything and the way the work schedule would work out. I think it'd have to be a very big commitment for my husband.
Be comfortable with like the current education system and like how everything is these days?
I think private school would be an option, Christian school, something like that. Because even I went to like school twice a week at a co-op group. Okay. There was like 50 kids in my class, so I still had some like social interaction. But yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna homeschool, especially not in like high school and stuff, because I felt like I suffered doing online school in high school. But when I was young, like preschool through like third grade, it was amazing. Like we did all kinds of science experiments and we were outdoors all the time. Kind of stuff that, like, Fisher's wife, she does like the outdoor schooling stuff, and she's really into I guess they call it forest school, and she's really into that stuff. I'd be more interested in that sort of thing.
So up to a certain point.
Yeah, like,
and then like once like high school takes over, or middle school, high school.
Yeah, middle school, high school, I think is really important to be in school. I mean, I have nothing to compare it to because Denver and I were homeschooled our entire lives, but I don't think I'd do the same. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see. I mean, that's putting.
It's a thought that like
horse.
Des and I've like had, and
yeah,
we've been talking about it, and it's just like the way the world's going. It's kind of. I mean, especially like the elementary school days, like the most like formative, and then maybe up until like middle school. But yeah, I could definitely see like high school being like
it's
truly
tough.
necessary to the social interactions and like just growing.
Yeah, Denver and I are lucky. We're only like slightly weird, But we turned out. I mean, I have nothing to compare it to. That's always what I say. Is people are like, well, do you regret it? I'm like, well, what is there to regret?
Right.
I had no choice in the matter.
Yeah.
But it was a sacrifice my parents made for. They didn't see each other as much because they saw us more. And that's the sacrifice.
Right. But that's cool.
That's what it took. Yeah. I don't know. We're kind of putting the cart before the horse for the kids stuff, but I'd love to have like 3 or 4 kids. But on this salary, I don't know if I could afford it. We don't make a whole lot of money, but we don't really do it for the money, so
yeah,
we do it because it's an amazing job.
Oh yeah, it's fun. There's nothing like it. And then the schedule.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I love that. To wake up, well, yours would be A shift, but to wake up on a C shift morning and like just sleep in, it's the best feeling in the world.
These past 8 days have been awesome.
Yeah, I've noticed when I first came up, I was like, you had grew out your beard. I was like, there's no way he just got off shift.
This is one day. No.
I remember some of y'all in recruit school had to like shave during the evening, like before we clocked out. Some people did because they were really strict on us, I felt like, than they are now. But personally,
yeah.
But I think that's always going to be the recruit schools that come after you. You're always going to think that they're terrible.
Like back in my day.
Yeah, I try my best not to be like that, but it's hard. There's like 200 people behind us.
That's crazy. I mean, we've just been like growing so fast.
Yeah,
it's wild.
It's been a
like
wild
back-to-back
6 years.
classes. 50-something people. It's
and we've only lost one person. That's it.
Davis.
I know. Old Dustin.
Yeah, but he
wanted to be a flight
medic.
medic.
What he stuck to his plan though.
Do you remember when the helicopters came and visited us and he was like, "This is what I want to do.
This is it."
He was so funny. But yeah, we've only lost one person. And like the class after us, like Max Post's class, they like lost like almost half. So we've done like extremely well for 6 years. I'm pretty proud of us.
Yeah.
We just need to do a reunion. That's all.
I feel like that should be like almost like they try and set it up for us. Like, hey, we're gonna let you guys.
Oh, like the county?
Yeah,
it's a good idea.
If they could somehow arrange that, like everybody from your recruit class, like we got you covered.
Yeah, maybe like it took place on one shift.
I know it's like idealistic and dreaming, but like that would be so cool.
If they like, it would be like on one shift and they would try to get us there, on shift or something, and then everybody else come in. I don't know, but it would be cool. I would love to do that.
Just to see the whole
group again. Just to see everybody, because there's some people I haven't seen in years, probably. Yeah. I mean, I see Weston all the time. She lives up in Molluska now, but.
When did she move up there?
Oh gosh, she's gonna kill me if I get this wrong. I think she's lived up there 2 years now.
Okay.
She lives in Lake Arrowhead.
Okay.
Yeah, her and Josh are hermits, so they like the excluded life of Lake Arrowhead. Yeah, you too.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was getting very much so Lake Arrowhead vibes when I turned in here, just without the gate.
Okay.
But
we're not as exclusive.
No, but the golf course and the lake, the little pond, it was reminding me very much of Lake Arrowhead. But yeah, she lives up there now, and we see each other a good bit. But other than that, I talk to Doyle all the time. Talk to Goss all the time.
So when are you going to move up here?
I don't know.
I mean, you have to move to
my boyfriend lives in between Blue Ridge and Blairsville, so I'm up here all the time. But
it's a drive to Cherokee for sure.
Yeah. Well, I was already making that drive anyway from camp, like through the summers. So,
Yeah, but doing it every
I
third
know
day
every third
is
day. It's like an hour 15.
like for me doing it. I did it for medic school. I put on a lot of miles on my truck.
Oh yeah, I bet.
It was
Oh my
bad.
gosh. Yeah, it's an hour 15, and it's just straight. I mean, I guess it's the same. The guys that all drive from Chattanooga, they say the same thing. But the other thing is no firefighters make money up here. Like, we don't make money, but up here in like Northeast Georgia, they don't make anything. It's hard to be a firefighter up here and just have the one job. So I don't know, but I love it up here.
It's so nice.
Yeah.
All right.
see.
Well, we're at about an hour.
Awesome.
You have any advice for the world?
Oh, conquer those mountains, man. Like, you find your mountain and climb until you think you can't go any further, and because you can.
There you go. Well, cool. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
This has been awesome. All right. Bye, guys.